Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to Hunting for Silver Linings. Today is Monday, January 18 here in the Great Lakes region of the United States. I'm the chapter director for Grand Rapids, Michigan for Startup Grind, and we do this Hunting for Silver Linings series to check in with different ecosystem builders, innovators, and investors across the planet to see what the hell is going on. Salvatore here, our special guest today, was one of our first conversations in early 2020 as the pandemic was making its way west across the planet. And he had some very interesting insights about mindset, in addition to innovation and his expectations for how his region might emerge from the pandemic. Salvatore, hello.
Hello.
Thank you so much for joining us again. I really appreciate the generosity of your time, my friend.
Thank you, Corey.
Now, I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about what has happened since we spoke to you in the early part of 2020.
For the spectators, I'm Salvatore Rosania, live in Pisa Lucca in Tuscany, in Italy. My community, startup community, counts of nearly 500 members, and above all, we have an important network of innovators, startups, entrepreneurs in innovation of technological center with university, Pisa University. Pisa is an important university center in informatics, in computer science, etc. And above all, as concerned the IoT world. A lot of startups in IoT in Pisa are being born, and so I'm proud of representing this area for Startup Grind. I have to tell you that in Italy the situation is particular in this period. Now there is a government crisis. The pandemic is growing, but not more, not at a great number. And above all, the light of the outside of the tunnel is the vaccine, the distribution of vaccine in Italy. Now, at this moment, we are at 1 million doses of vaccine in population. So we are full of openness, surely, but above all, every entrepreneur, every startupper, every professors, etc., are seeing about the future of business. So we are analyzing about pivot the business or changing the businesses as a concern the changing towards to remote working, for example, or towards to healthcare digital work. A lot of startup, above all concerning the software development, are trying to involve it in healthcare business because we think about in future a lot of healthcare services will be at home. by wearable, by cloud services, by cloud computing, fog computing, edge computing in IoT products. But surely we can say that the future can be marvelous for the people that that can understand the goal, no? The street, the great street and the right street road of digitalization, and so the transformation of digitalization all over the world.
Thank you. I have one question that is top of my mind before I get back into what's going on with your ecosystem. When we talked last, you had mentioned that one of your guests had just emerged from a 2-week coma from COVID. Wondering how is he? Is he still healthy?
For COVID, the situation is in Italy is good. Good because now is under control at this moment. In order to check the wave of COVID in Italy, we have to respect the social distance, the restrictions that every person all over the world are respecting. In order to have a great check of person involved in COVID-19, I have to tell you that we have to say thanks to our healthcare workers and doctors, because they are real angels in Italy, but above all over the world. Because I have a lot of friends that work in a hospital in Italy, and really they work 24 hours, 7 days, and I have to say thanks with my heart to every healthcare workers, or everyone, doctor. Really, I think that in post-pandemic we have to say thanks always to doctors, to healthcare workers, and less to policymakers, to politicians. But I have to tell you that in this situation, it's very difficult to make decision as concern a politician's point of view. So I have to say thanks to politicians too, because after analyzing the situation, it is easy, no, to say that the politicians are in mistake, no? But I have to say that decision for politicians are very difficult because analyzing, we have to consider the analysis of the first wave, the second wave, the third wave. After we have to analyze the economic point of view, the healthcare point of view, so the psychological point of view. So the situation is strange. So we have to say thanks to politicians, to healthcare workers, and to doctors, and to Startup Grind, because Startup Grind by virtual event, by director like Hart, help entrepreneurs, help startups, help technological center, etc., to put in networking in order to restart in business as soon as the pandemic is at the end.
Sure. In a lot of parts of the world, we have seen that there is a lot of innovation and companies being started. When we had our global conference last year around this time, we were talking about a global low of entrepreneurism, like the lowest amount of entrepreneurism globally in 60 years. But now, as the pandemic has torn the globe open, we're seeing more innovation than ever. Is that also your experience in your region? And is it mostly within the university system? Is it outside of university?
Yeah, in Italy, but I can say about my area, Pisa Lucca, Tuscany. I have to say that smart working is the must. At this moment, but I think that in the future, surely. I think that this type of working job can give us a great benefit from employee point of view, because employee can balance work and family time, and from entrepreneur point of view, because by smart working they cut a lot of cost about energy, about traveling, commercial traveling, about commercial dinner, commercial lunch, because before of pandemic, a lot of agreements are closed during lunch or during a dinner. So a lot of cost. So we can say that the pandemic, as you correct, say, put and give all over the world a lot of innovation. Smart working concern the innovation in process, process of the job, process of work in a commercial area, in administrative area, etc. But I think that this pandemic in future, for example, now I think that in future the creativity will be more important, for example, because I think about AI, no? Artificial intelligence. Before of a pandemic, everyone are afraid of artificial intelligence, AI. But now in pandemic and seeing the resilience, no, of every people, every entrepreneurs, every startupper, we can say that the creativity will be the most important value in order to win against artificial intelligence. No? And so creativity and artificial intelligence can be the great important factors in order to scale up startup, scale up business, scale up entrepreneurs all over the world. So I think that analyzing the situation pandemic and from a personal point of view, but reading journal, reading a lot, and watching a lot of situation on TV or YouTube, I can say that creativity will be an important character factor for a brilliant CEO in the future.
Cool. When we talk about innovation, it's natural to think about how we're going to find the money to help fund that innovation. What is the investor outlook and mindset in your region currently?
As concern the point of view of investors in Italy, now we can say that in Italy investors in pandemic become more selective, but this period in 2020 in Italy, and I think that pandemic has accelerated the process. A lot of laws about funding for startup, for innovation, have made, you know. So, for example, Italian government created a structure, a company that manage funding for a startup. So this company vehicle intervene, go to startupper, investing some money together, shareholders, all the shareholders, or new shareholders, and another important aspect that pandemic, I think, accelerated is concern the equity crowdfunding in Italy. I think in future, because there is some progress in government about about the equity crowdfunding regarding the ICO, so the funding in startup by Bitcoin or by share in Bitcoin or a crypto wallet, cryptocurrency. So that I think that we are optimistic for Italy, for Tuscany, and for Europe. As concern the Europe, I have to tell you that But because of pandemic, the Europe governments decided to invest a lot of money in order to grow Europe and cover the losses in companies for a lot of citizens. No? For example, in Italy, this funding plan, named Recovery Fund Plan, is about 222 billion euro. 222 for new intervention in digitalization, in healthcare sector, in education and research, in cohesion and inclusion, in ecological transition, in green revolution. For example, for Italy, in ecological transition, green revolution, the Italian government will put 7.5 billion euro. In digitalization, innovation, competitiveness and culture, 45.1 billion. In public infrastructure, 32 billion.
Wow, that's cool.
In education and research, 26.1 billion. In cohesion and inclusion, 21.3 billion. This process lasts some years, so I think that this recovery plan start from at the end of 2021 till 2030, I think. Now, in Italy, this plan, this recovery funding plan, is similar to the Marshall Plan after the Second World War in Europe. So we are very optimistic in order to the growth of business from pandemic till 20 and 30. I am very optimistic after a pandemic. Now, the important for me and for you, Corey and Jamie, Nigel, is safe. Now is stay safe and healthy.
I've got a question as well. May I ask one? Obviously, we're in a following the pandemic, we're in a totally different position in terms of employment and people's availability. And I know there are companies out there such as Buffer or Buffer app that they do social media scheduling and planning. And they staffed out all of their whole operation and built their product using part-time staff. No one was full-time, even the CEO. Is that something you see locally being like Italians or people living in Italy being more open to the less full-time standard 9-to-5 type work, but instead more fluid or flexible part-time work?
Allora, in Italy, as concerned the kind of job at this moment, smart working is very well. There is flexibility. For example, me, no? I work at home 2 days, no? and 3 days in company. Above all, during the core of the pandemic, from March to August. I think that the pandemic accelerate the change of cultural work in Italy, because a lot of Italian entrepreneurs are very focused to presence, about presence of employees in company. And so by pandemic, entrepreneurs open to flexibility in job, but above all to smart working. I think that in future in Italy, we can see some days in presence company, and some days is smart working. Perhaps cutting the wage, salaries, little, little. But the advantage, the benefit for employees and for entrepreneurs of smart working is very high, so very great. So I think that the balance, for example, the balance between work and the family time is very important. So I say that entrepreneur cut a bit of wage, the employee are agree, because the advantage is important about the balance work and family time.
Okay.
Jamie, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your startup and what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah, so Few, as I mentioned earlier, is a holistic health platform. Basically, our job is to get everyone moving and make them more aware that fitness falls on 3 pillars, which is your physical, mental, and spiritual development. So for us, utilizing the physical fitness, we're really trying to elevate practitioners, not just in this space, but also in the spiritual and mental space, by connecting users with the practitioners on our app. We've been live, and as I mentioned, 2.5 months now, and our main go-to-market strategy has been actually to focus on businesses first, because it's just a faster way to gain users, and it means that our cost of acquisition is a lot lower, because we're going into, obviously now the majority of people are working from home, if not all, and people can't get to gyms, they can't necessarily go out as much, or safely. So what we're trying to offer for our clients is that instead of them allocating 40 euros a month, for example, for a gym pass, or 50 euros a month for a gym pass, instead they put it onto a self-serving platform that allows their employees to then, if they need therapy, for example, then they can go and get therapy. If they want to learn to, they want to go kayaking because it's safer, because it's outside, then go kayaking. If they want to do weekly yoga on the beach. So there's a wider remit for employees that ultimately makes employers look good, and it supports the local economy. So these are kind of a big thing we're driving at the moment. We're still super new, so we're still also learning as we go. But I think the big thing that we've discovered is that people are actually getting a bit tired of being online. And whilst a lot of people in this industry, in the kind of wellness space or well-being space, are trying to go online, going for the online play, I think we're having that, and that's great to have, but that's not really our USP. We're kind of going the opposite way, and we want to try and rebuild these bridges between humans again in a safe manner. So this is the importance for us, connecting on a physical level again, because this opens up doorways to be able to talk to others, which is much better for your mental side as well. Not that this isn't nice, this is amazing, but just in doing everything online, I don't think is as powerful as a combination. So that's kind of us. We're currently raising at the moment, and we plan obviously to maximize our exposure in Malta this year, and then prep ourselves for launch into the UK by the end of the year.
Okay, cool. And you said you just found the Startup Grind community, or you've known about us for a while?
Yeah, I was aware of you guys, say for a little while, but I've just joined the community last week. So
Okay.
I'm also very new. I don't really know what's going on. I was like, this is my first one, so I'll just put my head in just to go understand what everything is about, really.
We have a startup program, which is really good to get plugged into. We just launched that like early 2020. Within a few months, we had over 1,000 startups in there globally.
Wow.
And they've already made almost 1,500 investor meetings with the startups that are in the program. So, and it's free to join. So head to the website and get joined there. There's a really great guy, Alex. He's in charge of the startup program, and his team do a lot of good work. And that helps definitely get you exposure into different regions and countries as you're expanding. Do you have any questions, any more questions for Salvatore?
I was going to ask, I mean, I think you kind of covered it already, but obviously, Salvatore, you mentioned that healthcare and IoT is quite big at the moment in Italy. Are there any startups that have emerged over the last 9 to 12 months that are kind of worth watching out for, that are your tip to do quite well?
In Italy, as concern the startup ecosystem, above all in Tuscany, are in a particular situation because a lot of startup before of the pandemic are involved above all in software business. Now, by pandemic situation, startup and innovation are involving in IoT world. Why IoT world? IoT, Internet of Things. Now, the truth is that the Internet of everything, now at this moment is Internet of everything, will be the future, because everything will be connected. I think my thoughts regarding my study and my networking with professors and with entrepreneurs, everyone will have some wearable, some sensor on dresses, or the same smartphone, for example, is an IoT product. So I think that and the startup, China startup, are seeing the IoT world. IoT world means artificial intelligence in order to analyze big data that the sensor produce. Means sensor, so the production of the sensor, the particular sensor, means the service of cloud computing or fog computing or edge computing, no? In a sensor, in a product SIM. It means then the customer experience, no? By website company, by some instruments, by app on a smartphone, and etc. So a lot of investors, Italian or European investors, that see the startup above all involved in software, no? Software house. Now the investors are starting to see the startup involved in IoT. So not only software company house, but also hardware company. No? So the company is very good in developing sensors or wearable or to produce software that link sensor and the cloud and etc. I think that pandemic can bring this news. The IoT world will be the new business for startup.
Yeah, we are excited to see, like, even the it's the industrial IoT of things also, and then not just AI but advanced AI, where AI is teaching other AI. We have an interesting startup here in my region, and she has global ambitions. She has wearable technology, which is a non-drug, non-surgical treatment for dementia and Alzheimer's disease. And it's sunglasses that go opaque and clear. It's Bluetooth your phone into the cloud. And it is off of a MIT study. She's just coming out of a Stanford accelerator right now, and we're excited to see that work. And then there's a fun startup that usually the co-host that's on this program, it's Kubera. They're in India right now, specifically with blockchain data and getting involved with infrastructure and 5G. Like, it's just incredible what's happening in emerging markets. I wanted to give Nigel an opportunity to come in and introduce himself. He said that he wanted to say hi to the group and introduce what he's doing.
And, I'll take you off video because I feel as though I'm a little bit of an outlier here. Hi. I feel as though I just dropped in. I was literally, when I knew I'd joined late, and I expected about 50 or 60 people to be on the call. It was, there's only 3, there's now 4. Anyway, good to be hearing you all talk about these various items, and good to meet. Just in a nutshell, I mean, I interested in you speaking about the IoT sector, because I had nearly 20 years at the heart of it with a company called Stream Technologies, which we sold to ARM as part of the SoftBank group back in 2018. Since COVID, it's been a strange journey for me, because I actually exited 1 year earlier than I should have done, just as COVID hit and we went down to lockdown. So I lost my entire infrastructure and social network here in Glasgow last March. So in that time, I've taken the opportunity to take a bit of time out, of which 2 months was in Italy. Salvatore, my partner, she's originally from Caserta. In the last 8-9 months, I've spent some time with the six weeks on an MIT course to do with blockchain and tokenization technologies. And then since September, October, part of the Qubit program, which is sponsored by IBM, which is a quantum compute course through till next May, which is really interesting. And then, interesting enough, the actual meeting I had with it was the first meeting I had with the Startup Grind head of the Caserta chapter. Caserta, for those of you who don't know, is just outside Naples, which is the first meeting first engagement I'd had with Startup Grind since about 2 years ago after we exited to ARM. I was invited by the Glasgow chapter here in Scotland to present to the Startup Grind. So we did fireside chat, which was really nice. But then we engaged about 2 months ago. And it was only in the last week as a result of that meeting in Caserta that I actually started to scroll through some of the events, because I started to feel as, okay, kind of timing feels right. I've started to get my mojo back in terms of investment into looking at potential investments into companies, and also potentially doing a startup or two as well. And actually, it's really accelerated since that time, because today I've just pledged the first investment into an early stage company as part of a seed rounding fund, which is doubly supported by the UK's government's COVID fund, assistance fund, which they match funding in terms of convertible loan notes. So yeah, it's been an unexpected but very interesting journey, and I'm hoping that the world now starts to accelerate forward, and we start to see some really great businesses start to spring up.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. This particular program that you jumped into, they're more intimate, just sort of interviews to discover what's going on in ecosystems around the world. So far, since last March, we've had just over 100 of these conversations, checking in with different chapter directors, just to bring more context. You can Google all day long, like, what's going on in an ecosystem. That doesn't tell you shit. You have to actually talk to Salvatore, ask him the questions, because he's the guy on the ground. So it's been really insightful, especially to track this through the pandemic. So instead of taking time off like you, I've just sort of leaned into it. So it doesn't sound like you've really been too bored either. So
it's not been boring, no. That's for sure.
Great. And Salvatore, are there any other details that you want to share with us about your ecosystem, what you've learned from 2020, or what you're looking forward to in 2021 before we wrap up?
I have to tell you to everyone that now and above all in future we have to work together. So I wanted to say banal words, but I think that some values, some human values, as humility, as humanity, and above all helping each other, are values of the Startup Grind, will be the values that help innovators, startuppers, simple person all over the world, because in pandemic we have understood that the love not is a simple word, it's important word. The love is the most important value for not only for family or for friendship, but also for business, in the helping each other in a company, among colleagues, between entrepreneur employees, among politicians and employees. So we have and put attention to the the values of humility, of love, in order to go out of a pandemic and in order to help the world to become safe and healthy, in order to come back to normality before of pandemic, the period before of pandemic.
Jamie, Nigel, do you have any last questions for Salvatore about his particular region or Italy and their ecosystem?
None for me at the moment that I can think of.
Salvatore, I'm sorry, I missed the first part, so maybe you answered this already, but have you seen an acceleration of new startups in your area? And what is the most lacking resource? You know, what's the barrier to what are they finding the most challenging in terms of new startups? I asked that because when I was in Caserta, there was I think there was, you know, they were saying that they could do with probably a more expansive ecosystem and more people with experience and just a greater depth to draw on in that particular, because it is quite a small localis, you know, it's periphery of Naples.
Yeah, allora, in Italy there are important funding investors, no? For example, United Ventures or the Pixel, but I can say that the lack in Italian ecosystem is the amount of investing in startup. I think that the venture capital in Italy is not developed as in the USA or in UK or in Far East. I think that the VC in Italy from this period to future will be protagonist thanks to some government laws of this pandemic period and thanks to the recovery plan fund about COVID fund, no, in Europe and in Italy. So the lack, no, in Italy and in Tuscany also is the absence of venture capital that put a lot of money in startup, because the investment fund in Italy put till 1-2 millions, but often maximum, but often the amount of typical investment is 1,000 or 2,000 euro. So I think that when an investor believes in a startup, in an idea, in a team, investor have to put a lot of money, because in Italy there is a lot of talents, no? A lot of important professors, researchers. For example, a lot of researchers, Italian researchers, are in USA. Professor Guido Silvestri at Emory University in Georgia, that Professor Guido Silvestri is a professor that study the AIDS disease, and Professor Guido Silvestri involved in COVID-19 studies. Professor Guido Silvestri is an example, but a lot of research professors are abroad, and I think why Italy let this researcher go abroad. And the reason is the lack of funding for university, for center of research, and for a lot of startups. So I want to be optimistic and think that thanks to pandemic, to recovery fund pandemic, recovery fund COVID-19, new road, new innovation road start from Italy to Europe, and so the Italian talent can be the most important leverage in order to put and to bring innovation all over the world. Because I have to tell you that Italian talent is very important.
Yeah, thanks. Cool.
Yeah, Nigel, that's one reason why we love doing this this program, bopping in and checking in with the different directors, because they are acutely aware of like what exactly those gaps are and the size of those gaps, right? And then they also are very aware of their excess, where they might have capital that needs to be deployed elsewhere. Also advisory. When Salvatore talks about the billions of euros coming in to help public money, I think we know that that's not always the smartest money and it's not the fastest money. So like, it's great and it's a good start. But the ecosystem, it needs to have a more village approach, right? So anyway, thank you all for joining. I appreciate this nice surprise of getting to meet both Nigel and Jamie. Thanks, guys, for popping in and joining us on this.
My pleasure.
And,
welcome. Sorry I was late.
Yeah, I know, it's quite all right. You're great. And Jamie, when you do get into that startup program, we have a Mighty Network. So it's kind of like a Slack or a Microsoft Teams where you'll be able to investigate and research all the other startups that are in the program, as well as all the other directors are in there as well.
Amazing.
So when you're expanding into the UK, one person I would suggest you reach out to is Georgi. He is the chapter director of Plovdiv, Bulgaria. He has a development firm, a lot of relationships in the UK. Specifically, he spent many years there, growing and exiting a few companies in London specifically. So,
Georgi. How do I spell his name? Sorry.
Just to look at the Plovdiv, Bulgaria chapter on the website and you'll find him.
Bulgaria. Wonderful. Thank you.
Salvatore, thank you so much for your time. Good to see you again. Glad to see that you're healthy and well, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. All right.
Thank
Ciao,
you.
ciao, guys.
Well,
Take care. See you.